Today I'll show you building the Heritage Line station from blank baseboards through to platforms and station buildings. Hi everyone, I'm Martin and welcome back to Donnington Castle Model Railway. Now at the moment I am working on two main areas of the layout. One is the scenic section between the chalk cliff face and the castle area. Now that's quite an easy area to work on when I can get over to the garage. I know what I'm doing, there's no real research involved, it's just cracking on with doing that work. And the other area I'm working on at the moment is the Heritage Line station. And what I'll probably do is alternate between those two areas for videos so that you don't get sick of seeing me working on one area for a long period of time. The reason why I'm also working on the Heritage Line station is because unfortunately for most of my time now I'm looking for jobs, but when I'm a little bit fed up with that process, I can work on design work, I can do painting and assembling of models and things like that. So the Heritage Line station has been a great project to work on in that situation. Now, what I'll do in this video is get you up to date with everything that I've been doing there. So we'll wind right back to the beginning. I'll talk about plans for that area and then take you through the whole process of designing and building the platforms, putting station buildings in place and getting you right up to date with everything that I've been doing. Let's rewind and take a look at the Heritage Line station area and just talk through it bit by bit. So first of all, the gap in the middle of the layout. Probably when the layout's done, I may well operate from in here, but I am considering adding some lift out or hinged boards in here eventually to continue the scenics. A case of not very good planning. I didn't have enough room really along here for the station building I wanted, so I had to add this extra plywood ledge in here. That is working well scenically, but I keep smacking myself on that all the time now that's in there, so that wasn't a very smart move. And then the station area, just to remind anybody, because I haven't talked about this for a while, we have a single track coming in and then what will be two platforms and then back down to another single track section down this end here. And the rough storyline is this was a Great Western branch line or other through line, I guess, single track, initially broad gauge. And when they converted to standard gauge, they didn't do any platform realignment. So we've got a slightly bigger than usual gap between those two lines, which I think gives us an interesting or slightly different look to the station, but it will create some challenges for footbridges and things like that. So that's how we start out. You'll notice point rodding. That will be talked about in a separate video. I'm getting there with it. Okay, so next will be to add some platforms, and I will show you the process of creating those. My first experience of creating platforms was with Speen, which was the other station on the Heritage Line, and I'll link to that in the top right hand corner if you've not seen that. And in that I used Tinkercad to create a 3D model of a modular platform system, transcribe that into Lambourn, which is what we can see here. And if you have seen the Speen video, you'll know I got all sorts of model in terms of labeling things and trying to figure out how to fit everything together. For which I was really grateful for a lot of the comments and feedback that I got. And I used my initial modular design to create the platforms for the main Heritage Line station. So let's take a look at that. And in essence, all I've done is taken those designs and expanded the width of the platform surfaces to fit the space available. So let's just have a quick look. So this, so on effectively the far side of the station, that's one long straight platform. So all it was necessary to do was to alter the width of the platform.
no other modifications needed. The sides and the ends, they're all the same, and all of the brick cladding. The supports between the individual modules did need changing. You can see the old ones down here. So that was then very easy to get that on the laser cutter and get all that created. And that's really the beauty of a modular design is you can then just put effectively as many of these sections together as you want. So that worked quite well. For the other side, that was slightly more complex insofar as there was a much bigger area, and I needed to create this much wider platform area. But that was quite easy to do. It was just a case of extending everything downwards using the same modular system, and then effectively adding more of these holes in for the support sections, and then creating some different length supports to go underneath so that this is fully braced. Then at the ends here, then this effectively connects back up with the straight sections. So again, that kind of modular approach. Again, really easy to then throw all this onto the laser cutter, produce it, and because of the good feedback in terms of the labeling, that was really easy to assemble, much easier than the first go I had at this. And that enabled me to build the platforms up. So let's take a look at them.
That is one of the platforms, not quite finished because I've not finished the edging. The gap in here is an after build modification that we'll come back to with point rodding. So that fits in there. Although that looks quite long, that probably fits a 4-coach train with the loco, I think. So it's not huge on the grand scheme of things. You'll notice some of the annotations I put on these to save the mix-ups that I found when I built Speen Station, based on all the feedback that I got from that process. So that's a good example of where your comments really do help me to improve things going forwards. So that's one platform. Next will be this other side over here. And that's this side put in. You'll notice it's sticking out here. This is for the station building to fit onto. It might not be quite wide enough, but I can always build that out further. The idea really is to have this surface out here as street level, a bit like in Newbury. So then the track is effectively sunk down from that. But that's a problem for another day. So in these areas, I was thinking originally that this might have been left over from an old either good stock or a bay platform or something for a loco siding. I was thinking about whether to then put in the remains of that line, but in reality, the way things are, the geometry would never work for that, and I just think it would look a bit odd. I think it would look quite cool, but it just doesn't really fit with everything else, so I'm going to leave that. Down this end, we've got some space for some other bits and pieces that are railway related. Somewhere probably there needs to be a station master's house. That's TBC, but there is space in various places for that. So let me talk you through the plan. So the main station entrance and building is going to be on this side. We're then going to have a relatively substantial building over here, modelled on Lambourn. Signal box down here, which is what this cutout is for. That's where the rodding goes underneath the platform. And then some retaining walling along here with some steps up. And then this will be then street level with road and obviously over to the main station over that side. So looking at the size of the station, based on the station buildings, it's going to be a relatively big town that this is serving, particularly the fact that we've got the main lines and another station right across the road here, but let's not worry about that too much for now. So with the size of the buildings, this is going to probably need a footbridge adding in. In terms of around this area, I'm thinking that this station sits somewhere in size, probably between Newbury as it was originally built and maybe somewhere like Whitchurch. So relatively big. Hence the reason why we probably have a footbridge and not any kind of track level crossing. It would have been nice to put level crossing in somewhere down here to allow a road to come across. I just don't think there's the room to do that. So next step after this is then to start adding in our signal box and some ideas for some steps and things like that, and then we can worry about the station buildings after that. So this is our platform mounted signal box. It is the ratio kit, I'm going to say, either wheels or ratio, one of those. At some point there will be an interior, but at the moment the roof is not fitted. Those fire buckets didn't play ball, and therefore they're going to be carefully positioned on the top of the platform there. This is an old Dapple Kitmaster set of steps, so that's the idea of one way of getting up out of the station. I'll then do some much longer set of steps coming down onto the platform surface here. While we're talking about platform surfaces, this is not the final surface. So based again on other feedback from Speen, I thought I would create a laser cut top surface from 2mm either MDF or basswood, something like that. And that will then have all of the platform detail etched into it. And also I can then cut into that for things like some ideas I've got to do some hopefully realistic looking paving on the platform surface, and also have some indentations for the various buildings and things to sit into. So that's the idea. That will probably be coming along fairly shortly, actually. We're getting close to that stage. But let's see what this looks like with some station buildings. So this building here will be familiar to those who watch the channel regularly. This is a copy of the down platform building at Newbury. And then with that, we have some platform canopies. These will be again embedded into that laser cut surface. I'm only going to lean this in, it'll probably fall over, but just to give you a sense of, oh, there we go. That's how that will look on this side. And then over here will then be another building, and that will be effectively a reverse or mirror image of the station building at Lambourn, which I've already built for the club layout, but I will be able to therefore reuse that design, make that. So let's take a little bit of a detour and have a look at the process of building that. Oh, right on cue, platform canopies fell over.
I did a full build of Lambourn in a previous video, so I don't want to replicate what I did there. What I thought I would do, though, is talk through some of the changes here, and also just show you a complete U-turn and change of plan, just to show that when things aren't going right, sometimes it's better just to cut your losses and to start from the beginning again. So this is effectively a mirror of Lambourn. So that was a case of going into Lightburn, getting the files, doing effectively a mirror image on them, and then putting them back onto the laser cutter. Except, as I mentioned when I built the other station building, I'm having a real trouble getting good quality 1.5mm balsa wood, which is what I made the other building out of. So in my foolishness, I thought, oh, it'll be fine. I'll just use 2mm MDF. That 0.4mm won't make any difference at all. So I created all of this and got ready for painting this. And in fact, I did start painting it before really worrying about how I was going to solve the problem of putting it together. Because that 0.4mm, when you try and put those edges together, they just look so untidy. I then went down the route of trying to file back slightly on the corners to make them fit, and that's when I realized that I was just going in completely the wrong direction. So I stopped and took a completely different approach. And here we are in Lightburn with the final file. So these pieces here will look quite familiar to you if you've watched the Lambourn video. And these are the things that I originally made out of 1.6 mil balsa wood. But yeah, to fix the issue, I used the same approach that I did when I made Newbury Station. And that is to make these pieces effectively a skin out of 1mm card, and then replace the main structure with 2mm MDF. And the idea being that you build this core structure out of this MDF and then wrap it in this skin. Exactly what I did with the other station building. And it worked really well here. So by going back and starting the process again and going through it from the start, I actually found the build process much, much easier. Just one thing to note in terms of the design, obviously here you can see that this is mirror image. What I've done is I've replicated that same stonework from Newbury onto here. On Lambourn, this is much less fancy. There's effectively a brick arch over these windows. There's none of this ornate stonework. So that was a little upgrade I gave this version. Otherwise, exactly the same process, a little bit of enhancement to the roof, things like that. But I think I talked about all of that on the Lambourn video. You can see what that 2mm MDF structure looks like. Much easier to assemble. And then here's that skin in the card that goes on top.
And then our building is all complete, except for bedding in. So you'll notice around the back, we have the ability to make probably, well, either some kind of retaining wall or some kind of embankment down there. Maybe that kind of changes as we go along here. And then down this end, we'll then have space for a footbridge across here. Now you'll notice that's quite a big gap, not least because of the old broad gauge running lines, but also I'd like to set the footbridge back here and over to the back of the platform here, so there's plenty of space to pass in front. That will probably mean adding a support into the middle based on the design I've got in mind. That gets you up to date with the Heritage Line station and the progress made so far. The next thing I'm going to do probably here is focus on the footbridge, because that's the last big bit of infrastructure that I'm going to need to try and source. After that, it's platform decorations, water columns, benches, all those kind of bits and pieces which are much easier to do. But that is a story for another day. But that is where we're up to with the Heritage Line station. Now, I'm really pleased with the progress that I've been making on the station. From my perspective, a lot of the hard work is done now in terms of those buildings and working on the footbridge, retaining walls, and getting the point rodding finished, which I'm massively procrastinating on. If I can get all those bits done, then the finishing touches in terms of adding the platform surface and getting it really looking like a station, I think will be hopefully a relatively straightforward process, well, at least compared to everything I've done so far. Next video will probably be back on scenic modelling on the area just over my shoulder here, from the, as I mentioned at the start, from the cliff face round towards the castle. Thank you very much for watching. Please do leave me comments about how you feel I'm getting on, or any ideas and suggestions for the layout. Those really do motivate me to keep making these videos, so I thank you in advance for those. I will hopefully see you all on another video very soon, but from me, bye for now.